Hey, on this episode of Gen X Amplified, I am sitting down with globally recognized economist, author, and thought leader, Debra Whitman, who serves as the Executive Vice President and Chief Public Policy Officer at AARP, and she is also the author of the powerful book, The Second 50, Answers to the 7 Big Questions of Midlife and Beyond. And we are going deep, deep on longevity, aging, purpose, and what it truly means to thrive in the second half of life. And trust me, this one is for all of us. So, are you ready? Let's do it.
If you have a positive view on aging, you live 7.5 years longer. It's not just longer, you live healthier, you have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Even your brain volume is higher.
Welcome to Gen X Amplified, where we bring you inspirational and entertaining conversations with successful Gen X leaders and entrepreneurs.
This is the show created just for you. The powerful generation between the boomers and millennials to help you amplify your story,
Maximize your impact,
and become Gen Exceptional in business and in life.
Now, here's your host, Adrian Porter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gen X Amplified, the show dedicated to giving a voice to the very influential generation of leaders between those brilliant boomers and those magnificent millennials, as I always like to say. And today, we are diving into a conversation that is both timely and timeless about longevity, purpose, and what it truly means to thrive in the second half of life, because my guest is a globally recognized economist, author, and thought leader on aging and public policy. She serves as the Executive Vice President and Chief Public Policy Officer at AARP, where she leads the organization's research, policy analysis, and global advocacy on issues shaping the future of aging. And we all know that's important because all of us are aging by the minute, right? Or we hope so. So before AARP, she spent many years on Capitol Hill, including serving as staff director for the U.S. Senate Special Committee on Aging, helping craft policies that impact millions of Americans. But now she is sharing her powerful insights in her new book, The Second 50, which we are going to unpack and dive into. So without further ado, please welcome an extraordinary leader, scholar, and change maker who is helping all of us rethink, reset, reframe, and reimagine what it means to grow older and to grow better. The wonderful Debra Whitman. Debra, thank you so much for joining me on Gen X Amplified.
Adrian, that was the best hype introduction I've ever had. Thank you so much.
Well, it's fitting for my guest. First of all, it's so wonderful to see you again. We actually met a few years ago when I was a guest for a thought leadership conference, and we had a special dinner, and we sat next to each other. I was invited by Gene Asius, and we chatted. We talked about personal, professional, and I'm like, I have to get her on Gen X Amplified because as a Gen Xer, we know this is the AARP lane and we are reframing, reimagining, and we are exceptional generation. So I definitely want to talk to you about your book.
Great. Well, I am excited to be here and excited to see you again.
Likewise. So, Debra, let's get right into it. First, before we unpack the second 50, because I must say, first of all, thank you for sending me the advanced copy as a 50 plus nifty 50 year. I thought it was amazing. And also in the lane that I'm in is reframing the narrative of the magical middle, not the messy middle, but the magical middle with what I do. I was so inspired by what you wrote. But before we get into that, let's take a step back. And can you talk a little bit about your professional journey leading up to becoming AARP's Chief Public Policy Officer? Like, what led to that moment?
Wow. Great question. And it has been a journey. I grew up with my grandmother and was very close to her. My mom was her caregiver for over 50 years. My grandmother had schizophrenia, but was just such a lovely person in my life and loving and made the best cinnamon rolls. And I think that experience of growing up with somebody older in your life who you really value
Right.
Helped to open this whole career path that I've been on. And so I'm from middle of nowhere, Eastern Washington State. Went to Gonzaga, go Zags,
All right.
for undergraduate. I did my PhD at Syracuse, so go Orangemen, I also have to say. And then luckily, Syracuse had a real focus in its economics around public policy and around aging. They had a grant from the National Institute of Aging. So I was really exposed to kind of the complexities of this life and
Right.
what we knew and what we didn't know.
Right.
So I left there. I worked at the Social Security Administration as a researcher and started a huge research grant project. I got a fellowship to go on Capitol Hill and was basically a high level intern for Ted Kennedy's healthcare staff.
Wow.
Where I learned a ton about healthcare. I worked at the Congressional Research Service and then ran the Senate Aging Committee for about 5 years. And then have been here at AARP for over a decade. And here I lead our Public Policy Institute, which is our think tank.
Right.
I lead our global thought leadership team, our research and brain health and Office of Policy Development. So all kinds of really, really smart people who are thinking about how to make it easier to age well in America.
Wow. Well, thank you for that journey. I was very, you shared a little bit about, your past when we had a dinner conversation, but it was just a dinner conversation. But this is a little bit more in depth. So it was great for me to hear just some of those steps and even with your grandmother and the work that you've done in the White House. Ted Kennedy, I'm sure that was an amazing ride and adventure, I'm sure.
His staff were incredible, and I've never seen anybody work harder at trying to make change. I was really inspired. I could see his schedule, and in the morning it'd be fighting to increase the minimum wage, and then in the later in the day, he'd be down on the floor arguing over cuts to healthcare,
Right.
and then in the afternoon it would be something else, and so. I was just really inspired both by the commitment to trying to make America a better place and also the hard work of, making compromise
Right.
and working with people across the aisle and understanding the issue that people face. It was a great lesson in how do you get things done in Washington in an environment that maybe we don't have anymore, where people really did work together on the things that mattered.
Yeah. Wow. Working across the aisle. That is such a very interesting and you would think easy thing to do. But I'm so glad that you were around that experience. And what they call him, the Lion. It was a nickname.
The Lion of the Senate.
See,
well, and that experience serves me well at AARP because we are nonpartisan,
right.
and we do look for, what are the issues that really matter to people, and
right.
How can we put forward good solutions to the problems that people face every day?
Right. Well, speaking of solutions, let's jump. So let's talk a little bit about, as you mentioned, you spent many years shaping public policy. What was a turning point for you personally, Deb, that made this work personal for you and the moment that led you to writing this very much needed, fresh, amazing book, The Second 50?
Well, so I've been working on aging, as you can tell, for the last 25 years, and thinking about the longer lives that people are having. And then my husband, who is a lifelong athlete, was hiking in Colorado by himself and started feeling some chest pains.
Okay.
And Glenn is a teacher, and so every year he gets trained in CPR and what to recognize of the signs. And so at first he sort of brushed it off and then realized maybe this is serious. And so he flagged down some help from some hikers who luckily they had cell service and called 911. Luckily, Boulder Mountain Rescue, God bless them, raced up the mountain, strapped him to a gurney, carried him straight down the mountain, got him to the emergency room where his heart stopped. They call it the Widowmaker, which, just makes my heart stop thinking about it. And luckily he made it to the emergency room because they were able to put a couple stents in, open up the artery, and he is fine. But that sense of time and how much time we have and what our time is going to be like as we age was really kind of shaken, because we actually had in our wedding vows, I will love you till I'm 103, which was kind of a joke because he's a year older than me. So he would joke like, okay, what happens when I'm 104 and you're not there? But we'd always planned for a long life and suddenly had to realize that, not everybody gets a long life. He was really lucky and really blessed by having all of those things come together. But it got me thinking, well, what about the people that don't make it to their second 50 or throughout a second 50? Who does? Why did they do? What is that second 50 looking like? So all of those things were kind of in my head as I was thinking about what I wanted to spend some more time thinking about and writing about.
Right. Well, thank you. So first and foremost, I'm so glad to hear that your husband made it through, and God bless those individuals that were on the trail, at least. And you say Boulder, Colorado?
Just outside of Boulder.
Out of Boulder.
Yeah.
That, a lot of times when change happens and we have these inflection points in life, that spears, additional insights and new beginnings. And that obviously, like you said, had you thinking about the second 50. And so when you eventually put pen to paper or fingernails to keyboard, to start to craft this amazing book, you structured it around these 7 big questions of midlife and beyond. For example, how would I live? How long will I live? Will I have enough money? Can you just walk us through, Deb, how you chose those questions and why they matter so much right now?
Yeah, well, between Glenn's heart attack and my own impending 50th birthday, I wrote the proposal when I was 49. So suddenly the second 50 was real to me. I wrote down really the questions that I wanted to know and thought that other people might too. And so I started with the practical questions. Will it be a second 50? How long will I live?
Right.
Will I be healthy is something we all think about as we age. I thought about some practical questions like, will I have enough money, and how long will I work? And then I thought about some scary questions because I didn't want to shy away from all of the parts of aging. And so I wrote about, will I lose my memory, and even how will I die? And I'm going to tell you that the how will I die chapter was probably the most interesting for me to write, because I honestly, even with this brush of death, I hadn't thought about what happens when we die and what that looks like for our families, and the sort of the mechanics of how do we prepare for dying and leaving behind a legacy and all of those things. And so I'll just say I learned so much, even though I'd worked in this field for 25 years. I learned so much by digging into the research, talking to experts all over the country, interviewing people about what their second 50 was going, was how it was going and what we could learn from each other. And those all became a part of the book. I did include personal stories, which was really weird for me as a researcher to use the first person, but hopefully it helps. Everybody knows my entire family now, including my husband's Uncle Barry, but hopefully that connects people to me. And it is also how, when we think about aging, we look at the people around us as both inspiration, warning, and sort of the paths that we'll probably be on as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, Deb. And you're right. Like, first of all, I love the questions. I think they're very important questions. So some of the questions as you reference are easy. How long will I live? Will I have enough money? The will I have enough money is always top of mind. But, we have to force ourselves to tackle some of those hard questions when it comes to estate planning, Even like you said, the question about how will I die, it may seem morbid, but this is a stage we should start thinking about that. I was wondering too, because you wrote the proposal, obviously you said, well, I don't know. Was it post-pandemic?
I wrote it before the pandemic. The book shifted because of the pandemic. I'll just say,
yes,
I realized a happy, joy book actually didn't feel right to me. Both, we have highs and lows as we age, just like we have highs and lows at every other part of our life.
Right.
And I also really wanted to talk about the disparities that we have in the United States on all of these issues.
Right.
That not everyone is living their second 50 the same way. We have huge differences in just how long people will live. So the life expectancy of Native Americans is less than 65. Right.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. People don't, obviously because Native Americans don't get a lot of ink as far as their culture. And a lot of people don't know that.
They don't get enough ink. I grew up next to the Colville Reservation in Eastern Washington State. And,
okay.
It's part of my, personal sense of pride and respect for the friends that I have, that their issues get attention. And if you look at the county with the lowest life expectancy in the United States, it's Oglala Lakota County.
Okay.
And they live 20 years less than the highest lived county in actually Summit County, Colorado, which is where Breckenridge is. Wow. 20 years life expectancy difference within this one country. Wow. It's not that people are biologically different. It's, access to healthcare and clean water and clean air and food and all kinds of those things. And so I think the pandemic really inspired me to tell the whole story of America and how we age, and not just the happy story. And I think what I've heard back from people is they see themselves more in the book because of that. And they feel that, I don't blame people in that will I have enough money chapter if they haven't saved enough, because not everybody either can afford to save or even has access to save for retirement. And so, trying to shift the narrative a little bit to be more inclusive of really the experiences that lots of people are having across this country as they age.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's some insights and some data points that people should know, because, again, a lot of times we're in this bubble, especially if you work in the work that we do. And then if you start listening and watching this mass media, you forget about those pockets of individuals and cultures and communities that there's not equitable lifespans and so forth. So it's very great to hear, unfortunate to hear, but great to hear, to become aware, I should say. So speaking of longevity and living longer, and that's something I love talking about, and it's always, we are living longer, as a whole, but there are some instances. One of my favorite insights from the book, Deb, is you talk about people with a positive view at aging, live over 7 years longer, just changing their mindset. And as we think about, the name of this show and the audience and many Gen Xers, we're now, a lot of us are in the nifty 50, if you will. How can Gen Xers cultivate a healthier mindset about growing older, especially in this youth-oriented culture, where, it's the young is highly favored a lot of times, not all, especially when it comes to up and coming industries?
Yeah, well, I mean, ageism is the one ism that we all do to ourselves, right?
That's true.
And each other. And it's very ingrained in basic language. I can't tell you how many, jokes that I hear, self-deprecating, but also sort of self-sabotaging, of people like, oh, I had a senior moment, or, I'm too old to do X, Y, or Z. And all of those really limit our views of what our own potential can be. And so first, let me tell you about the research, and then I'll tell you that people can do. So a fabulous researcher, Dr. Becca Levy in Yale, has done a whole series of studies, and they've been replicated all over the world. But basically, they look at what people's views about aging are.
Okay.
And then they measure things like their health and their life expectancy. So I'm going to give you a quick test because I can't ask the listeners to do so, but I'm going to ask them to do it in their head. Okay. So Adrienne, if I have you picture an older person, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Ooh, an elderly, an older person, old, elderly, gray. I mean, so many, even though I'm gray, but which I love it, I embrace it. But yeah, elderly, old, gray. That's a great question.
So it's a little bit of a trick question.
Yeah.
What they find is people that when they think of aging and older people, if they have a positive words and positive views, so things like wisdom, knowledge, grandparents, like there's a variety of things that we can think about the future being positive. If you have a positive view on aging, you live 7.5 years longer.
That's great.
It's not just longer, you live healthier, you have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Even your brain volume is higher. Wow. So it affects us physiologically. And I think a piece of that is that if we view, I'm aging and I should be out in the world and doing good things, then you do those good things. If you feel like aging is bad, I should hide, I should go into myself, I should just sit here on the couch, then you do those things. Yes. And so it's self-perpetuating in some ways. Some of the things Becca talks about that you can do to change your mindset. One is to think about older people that you admire. So we just had the passing of Jane Goodall. I had the opportunity to meet her years ago. Wow. And man, she was amazing.
I love Jane. Oh my God, I love Jane.
She was amazing. 90s, still out there. She said she traveled the world 300 days a year, not because she loved traveling, but because she believed that her voice had a message to give. And so when I think about somebody like that, I'm like, okay, you can do that still in your 90. You can still be an icon for a change. That helps me see a future of aging that's a lot more positive. Wow. And another thing is having intergenerational friends, right?
Yes.
Like, not just your family, but other people in your lives. And so, and another thing is to catch yourself. So next time you make a disparaging remark, be a little kinder to yourself. Maybe you just lost the keys because you didn't put them in the right place. It wasn't because you're old. My teenagers lose their keys far more than I do.
I love it.
So those are the types of things that we can do to sort of retrain ourselves and just be aware of internalized ageism and external ageism, because the more we tell others that, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, or you don't have any right to be here, or, this isn't the place for you.
Right.
The more we segregate older people rather than welcoming them into society. And it's particularly problematic in the workforce because we're going to need to work longer. And a lot of the research we've done is that mixed generation teams are actually much more productive. People want to work with older people and younger people. And together that mix is actually really powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I talk about that all the time as well. And, multi-generational mutual mentorship, is very, very important. That's amazing you met. I'm a huge fan of Jane. I actually saw a documentary recently. It was on YouTube it's a Big Think program where she was interviewed, and she loved her story about the egg and her mother and wanting to know how chicken lay an egg, and that started her path of really being in that industry and really wanting to become more attuned with animals, and we just lost her. So let's talk about living in purpose. And so you write a lot about the importance, Deb, of purpose in the second half of life. Just curious, your insights from the book and your own thoughts as well. How can mid-career and midlife professionals, Deb, rediscover or redefine purpose as they move through, these traffic jam years of the nifty second half of life, if you will?
Yeah, so purpose can come from a lot of places. So let's talk about purpose in the workplace, and then let's move beyond that, because not everybody has a job like me and you, where we're doing the things that like give us energy and give us the reason. You know, some people have to go to work and do the hard stuff,
Right. That's a good point.
that makes the world spin. But having a sense of purpose is one of those other traits that does help us to live longer and healthier. And again, it's self-reinforcing.
Right.
The more purpose we have, the better we take care of ourselves, and the more we engage with others, and so forth. So finding what is meaningful to you is really, really important. And it can be, my sense of purpose and meaning on this planet is that I am going to help make aging easier for the society. Right?
Love it. Love that. Love that.
That's where I get my joy. I work with smart people and passionate people every day that are all on that same page, on that same journey. And we are fighting every day to make the world a better place.
Yes.
You can get purpose just from, maybe not what you do is meaningful, but maybe how you do it. Right. So purpose can come from, you can be a checker, and your job is to make sure, all of the items that are on that little tray keeps coming at you, and you get it all right. Right. But you can also take that moment to engage with the people who may be feeling lonely or isolated. And your purpose can be giving people a little sense of connection that they might not have in their life. The smile that you give somebody, that may be that one time a day that a person has that connection. So there's the what, and then there's the how, and then there's purpose all over, right? We don't have to get paid for our jobs to find purpose. Volunteering, giving back from your community can be a huge way that people find a sense of purpose. It could even be just helping, a neighbor carry groceries in when you see them, with a full trunk. All of those types of little touch points that we can help others can really make a difference. And then it doesn't even have to be people. So having a pet can give you a sense of purpose. Even having plants have shown in nursing homes to help people feel like they have something to do. They've got to help, water that plant. And it may not be often, but that plant relies on them and gives them a sense of joy and meaning. So I think purpose can come from all different ways, and is a key part to healthy longevity. So reinventing our sense of purpose as one type may go away as we switch jobs or retire is really, really key. Finding that reason to get up in the morning is the most important thing.
I love it. Well, purpose, you can get it from people, pets, plants. I love the alliteration. I'm 2 out of 3. My daughter is begging for that pet, but I'm not sure. I may give in because when she gives me those eyes. Deb, I can nerd out on these type of conversations all day. We don't have all day, but I love talking to people who are as passionate about aging and purpose and how we live as you, and obviously the work that you do. I love the book. I've always loved the work that you've been doing with AARP for years. But speaking of purpose and story, there's one question that I always ask all of my guests on Gen X Amplified, and it gets into your own personal story. Deb, if there was a song that would play anytime you walk down the street or enter a room that captures the essence of your own story, the current story of Deb Whitman, what would that be? What would be your own personal theme song?
So I'm going to be honest, I struggled with this because I feel like there's different stages in my life that had different theme songs.
That's great.
Closer to Fine, Indigo Girls when I was in college, right? Like that was such a classic of, I had spent 4 years prostrate to the higher God.
I love it.
And then I think there's been times, one of my favorite CDs ever, yes, we are Gen Xers.
We are Gen Xers.
Was Bob Marley's Greatest Hits. And so, Get Up, Stand Up was kind of a pump up song as I went to work in the Senate. And then I think now Andra Day's Rise Up song feels a little feels like the right song for me, particularly as she talks about have to get up 1,000 times. And I feel like that's the world where we take a step forward, we take a step back, we take another step forward.
Right.
But the fight still continues. So yeah, I'm cheating. I don't have one song.
Yep, that is quite all right. That is quite all right. See, you're like me. I'm a music fanatic. And I actually love the way you answer that, because a lot of times I tell that there's different songs throughout the soundtrack of your life, your story.
Yeah.
And I have different songs. And I could say one of them is I Got the Power by Snap, because that's just I'm always thinking about mastering and having power and agency over my journey.
Yes.
And I'm a Gen Xer, so, I got the power. When I hear that, I'm ready to go.
It's actually stuck in my head the rest of the day.
See, I did that on purpose. But yeah, there's different songs. And you mentioned Bob Marley. Oh my God. I sing to my daughter, who's 10, Three Little Birds all the time.
I love that song. Love that song.
It is amazing. So you're right. That's the power of music. Deb, thank you so much for joining me. I must say, I will tell everyone again, AARP, the brand, is such an amazing brand. It's such an amazing organization. The people I've been honored to meet some of the people that work there, including the wonderful Deb Whitman. I would say that people that work at AARP, there's a level of passion, purpose, and intention when it comes to just something bigger than work. We're talking about changing the world. We're talking about changing how we view aging. I love it. And that's one of the reasons that inspired me to launch this podcast, Gen X Amplify. So I'm always inspired by the work you do. Deb, please let everyone know how they can get a hold, can purchase, can download through Audible, all the above, the second 50 answers to the 7 big questions of midlife and beyond. How can they get the book?
Local bookstores, I'm always going to be pro local bookstores. If they don't have it on the shelves, they can probably order it for you, but all the online platforms, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon, all of those also, you can get it. It's on Audible. It's not my voice. And the paperback is going to be coming out later this year.
Oh, wow.
So that's something to look forward to. And I'll just say one last thing. I think, we Gen Xers think that AARP is for the people above us. And I had always thought the baby boomers were going to solve all the problems of aging. And then by the time I got there, there would be nothing left to do.
Right.
That's not true. We Gen Xers are going to need advocates fighting for us just as much, if not more. So,
yes.
So just know that we're out there fighting for you too every day.
Oh, they are fighting. They are fighting. I tell you, listen, Gen Xers, we're in mid-40s, we're 50s, but, we are the exceptional generation between the brilliant boomers and magnificent millennials. I always talk about positive framing. You'll never hear me talk about, generation bashing. We all in this world together. So I'm always uplifting, and we're in this multi-generational world. But Gen X, we get overlooked, thus the podcast. But again, we're now at the age of leadership, and we're squeezed between the middle, but we have so many exceptional skills and superpowers, resilience, adaptability, and we're always looking to thrive in this next nifty second 50. Deb, it's been an honor. Thank you so much for joining me and having this conversation with myself and our Gen X Amplify community.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Wow. Okay. That was such a rich and powerful conversation with the wonderful Debra Whitman, who serves as the EVP and Chief Public Policy Officer at AARP. And as we discussed, she is also the author of The Second 50 Answers to the 7 Big Questions of Midlife and Beyond. And I tell you, if you weren't already thinking differently about aging before this conversation, I hope you are now. Because that insight about positive mindset, living 7.5 years longer, that right there is worth the price of admission alone. And guess what? There's no charge. This is free value for you. But seriously, Debra is doing such important and necessary work along with her team at AARP through her book, through her advocacy, and it was an honor to have her on the pod. So make sure you go and grab The Second 50 if you haven't already, wherever books are sold. And follow Debra on social, on LinkedIn, to stay connected. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please go and leave us a great rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the word and reach more people with these Gen exceptional conversations. And don't forget to visit genxamplify.com and also adrianporter.com for the show notes, all the episodes, and everything that we are doing with the Mastery Map framework, mid-career mastery, and the broader magical middle movement. This is Gen X Amplified, the podcast dedicated to you, the powerful and exceptional generation between those brilliant boomers and magnificent millennials. Until next time, take care.